It was a quiet afternoon in a small neighborhood pharmacy in Atlanta. The waiting line stretched further than usual, filled with people from all walks of life, some young, some elderly, all seeking relief in the form of prescriptions or over-the-counter remedies. Among the customers stood Margaret, a black woman in her late 40s, impeccably dressed in a tailored blazer and clutching an expensive handbag. Her demeanor exuded a mix of impatience and entitlement as she tapped her foot and glanced at her watch every few seconds. Just ahead of her was Angela, a white woman of similar age, dressed casually in a simple sweater and jeans. Unlike Margaret, Angela appeared calm, scrolling through her phone to pass the time. Her relaxed posture contrasted sharply with Margaret's growing irritation, which was evident to anyone paying attention. The line inched forward, but Margaret's frustration only deepened. She let out an audible sigh, earning a few curious glances from other customers. Unable to contain her annoyance any longer, she stepped closer to Angela and spoke, her tone sharp. "I'm in a rush," Margaret said, her voice cutting through the low hum of conversations. "Do you mind if I go ahead?" Angela looked up, momentarily startled by the request. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she replied politely but firmly, "but I've been waiting just like everyone else." Margaret's expression hardened, her eyebrows knitting together. "Well, that's fine for you," she snapped. "But some of us have important things to do. You don't seem to be in much of a hurry." Angela tilted her head, trying to keep her tone neutral. "I'm sorry, but I don't think anyone here is waiting for fun. We all have things to do. You'll have to wait your turn." The atmosphere in the pharmacy shifted as tension began to build. A few customers exchanged uneasy glances, sensing that the situation was about to escalate. Margaret stepped even closer, her voice lowering but gaining an edge of hostility. "You've got a lot of nerve," she said, glaring at Angela. "People like you think they can just do whatever they want." Angela's posture stiffened as she processed the comment. Her grip on her phone tightened, but she maintained her composure. "I'm not sure what you mean by that," she said evenly, her eyes narrowing. Margaret's frustration boiled over. She raised her chin and spat directly into Angela's face. The room froze. A collective gasp rippled through the pharmacy as all eyes turned to the two women. Angela stood motionless for a moment, the shock and humiliation evident on her face. A young employee behind the counter rushed forward with tissues, while a few customers stepped back, unsure of what to do. "What the hell is wrong with you?" shouted an older man from the line, his voice echoing through the room. He stepped forward, placing himself between Margaret and Angela. Margaret crossed her arms defiantly, showing no signs of remorse. "She was being rude and disrespectful," she declared, her voice full of self-righteous indignation. "I was just standing up for myself." Angela wiped her face with trembling hands, her voice calm but laced with disbelief. "You assaulted me because I wouldn't let you cut in line?" she asked, her words carrying the weight of both outrage and sadness. At that moment, the pharmacy manager emerged from the back room, her expression a mix of concern and alarm. "What's going on here?" she asked, her eyes darting between the two women. Angela took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. With remarkable composure, she recounted the incident, her words measured and precise. Several other customers nodded in agreement, offering their own accounts of what had just transpired. Margaret, however, was not about to back down. "I'm the victim here," she exclaimed, her voice rising. She refused to show respect. "Isn't there a rule about prioritizing people with real responsibilities?" The room went silent again, the absurdity of Margaret's defense hanging in the air. The manager took a deep breath, her expression hardening. "Ma'am," she said, addressing Margaret, "I'm going to have to ask you to leave, now." Margaret's face reddened, but she scoffed and turned on her heel, muttering under her breath about the decline of manners. As she exited, a bystander discreetly pulled out their phone and captured a picture of her license plate, understanding that this incident was far from over. Angela stood in place, still shaken but surrounded by a few supportive customers offering words of comfort. "Are you okay?" one of them asked gently. Angela nodded slowly, though her hands were still trembling. "I will be," she replied quietly, her eyes betraying a mix of hurt and determination. The seeds of something bigger had been planted, and though no one in that pharmacy knew it yet, this ordinary afternoon would soon spark a conversation far beyond its walls. Angela stood motionless, her face still damp from the shocking assault. A young clerk handed her a stack of tissues, their hands trembling slightly. Other customers began murmuring among themselves, their disbelief and anger palpable. "That's assault," said an older woman in the line, her voice shaking with outrage. "You can't just spit on someone and think you'll get away with it." Angela dabbed her face, forcing her emotions into check. Her hands trembled as she looked toward the pharmacy manager, who now stood next to her with a concerned expression. "I'm filing a police report," Angela said firmly, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of feelings inside her. "You should," the manager agreed, her gaze hardening as she turned to Margaret's retreating figure. "And we'll provide witness statements. No one should have to deal with something like this in our store." Angela nodded, grateful for the support, but her focus was elsewhere. This wasn't just about her. It was about standing up to the kind of entitlement that led to such a shocking public act. Once Margaret left the pharmacy, Angela turned to the bystander who had discreetly captured Margaret's license plate on their phone. The man, a middle-aged professional in a suit, approached Angela with a sympathetic smile. "Here," he said, showing her the photo. "You might need this for the report. No one should get away with treating someone like that." Angela thanked him and took down his contact information, knowing the image might become critical in holding Margaret accountable. Several other customers offered to share their accounts as well, providing Angela with a growing list of witnesses willing to back her up. The manager helped Angela contact the police, who arrived promptly. Angela recounted the incident in detail, carefully choosing her words. Officers took down statements from the witnesses, their seriousness reflecting the gravity of the situation. "She just snapped," Angela explained to the officer, her voice calm but heavy with exhaustion. "It was so unnecessary, and then she escalated it to something I never expected." One of the officers nodded. "What she did is legally assault, and it's good that you're reporting this. We'll follow up." Later that evening, Angela sat in her living room, still processing the events of the day. Encouraged by a friend, she decided to share her experience on social media. She typed carefully, her hands steady despite the lingering frustration. "Today, I was assaulted in a pharmacy simply because I refused to let someone cut in line. This isn't about entitlement. It's about the unacceptable way people treat others when they think they're above the rules. Thank you to everyone who supported me today. I won't let this go unnoticed." She attached a brief video from one of the witnesses, which showed the moments leading up to Margaret spitting on her, and ended the post with a call for accountability. "We need to do better as a community and as individuals. No one should feel this powerless in a public space." The post quickly gained traction. Within hours, it had been shared thousands of times, and the hashtags #JusticeForAngela and #RespectInPublic began trending on Twitter. Hundreds of people commented, sharing similar stories of disrespect and mistreatment in everyday situations. "That woman shouldn't get away with this," one user wrote. "Angela, we're behind you." As the story spread, it didn't take long for the internet to uncover Margaret's identity. A local journalist recognized her from the video and confirmed that she was a high-ranking employee at a well-known real estate company in the area. The journalist reached out to the company for comment, and soon the pressure on her employer began to mount. Emails and calls flooded the company's inbox. "Do you condone this behavior?" one message read. "Is this who represents your business?" By the next morning, the company had issued a public statement. "We are aware of the troubling incident involving one of our employees and do not condone this behavior in any way. The employee has been placed on leave pending a thorough investigation." But for many, the statement wasn't enough. Calls for Margaret's termination grew louder as more people shared Angela's story, emphasizing that such actions had no place in a professional or personal context. Amid the chaos, Angela received an outpouring of support. Strangers reached out with messages of encouragement, offering legal advice, or simply sharing kind words. Local activists contacted her, asking if she needed assistance navigating the legal process. Angela remained composed, determined to channel the incident into something meaningful. She agreed to an interview on a popular morning news program, where she recounted the events with poise and grace. "This isn't just about me," Angela said during the segment. "It's about the way we treat one another. No one should feel humiliated or powerless in a public space, no matter the circumstances. We all deserve respect." The segment struck a chord, and Angela's story became a rallying point for a broader conversation about entitlement, respect, and the importance of holding people accountable for their actions. Meanwhile, Margaret released a carefully crafted apology through her lawyer. "I deeply regret my actions and recognize that my behavior was unacceptable," the statement read. "I hope to use this experience as an opportunity to grow and learn." The apology fell flat. For many, it seemed more like damage control than genuine remorse. Margaret's suspension turned into termination, as her company sought to distance itself from the controversy. Angela, however, chose not to dwell on Margaret's punishment. Instead, she focused on the lessons to be learned. "It's not about ruining someone's life," she told a friend. "It's about making sure people understand that their actions have consequences." The pharmacy where the incident occurred implemented changes, including staff training on conflict resolution and clearer policies to prevent similar situations in the future. Angela's story inspired other businesses to take a closer look at how they manage customer interactions and ensure respectful treatment for everyone. For Angela, the incident became a catalyst for growth, not just for her, but for the community around her. She emerged from the experience with a renewed sense of purpose and a commitment to advocating for fairness and dignity in everyday life. As she reflected on the events, Angela told her friends, "I didn't expect any of this, but if my story can help even one person feel more confident in standing up for themselves, then it was worth it." The ripple effects of her quiet resilience would be felt far beyond that small pharmacy, sparking conversations that might never have happened otherwise. As Angela's story continued to gain traction online, the public outcry against Margaret intensified. The video showing her spitting on Angela circulated widely, with national media outlets picking up the story. Headlines read, "Shocking Incident in Atlanta Pharmacy Sparks Outrage. Customer Assaults Another Overline Dispute. Faces Backlash. Respect and Accountability in Public Spaces A Wake-Up Call." Margaret's world began to unravel. Calls and emails flooded her former workplace as people demanded accountability. Some clients canceled contracts with her real estate firm, unwilling to associate with someone whose behavior was now infamous. Faced with mounting pressure, Margaret's employer released a second statement. "After a thorough review of the incident, we have terminated the employment of the individual involved. Our company remains committed to fostering respect and inclusion in all areas of our business." For Margaret, the consequences were swift and severe. Neighbors avoided her, friends distanced themselves, and her personal information, though shared against ethical guidelines, surfaced online. Margaret retreated from public view, deleting her social media accounts and issuing no further comments. Angela, meanwhile, became an unexpected symbol of resilience and dignity. As offers for interviews poured in, she carefully chose her platforms, wanting to ensure her message was about change, not revenge. She appeared on a popular evening talk show, where the host introduced her as a voice for accountability and fairness. "Angela, your story has touched millions," the host began. "What was going through your mind when this happened?" Angela took a deep breath, her calm demeanor shining through. "At first I was in shock," she admitted, "but as the reality of what happened set in, I realized it wasn't just about me. It's about the way people treat each other in everyday situations. None of us should feel humiliated or degraded in public." The audience erupted into applause. Angela continued, addressing the broader implications of the incident. "It's not about vilifying one person," she said. "It's about holding ourselves accountable for how we act when we think no one's watching. This isn't about race, class, or status. It's about basic human decency." Her words resonated deeply, sparking a larger conversation about entitlement, public respect, and personal responsibility. Many viewers shared their own experiences online, adding to the growing dialogue. The pharmacy where the incident occurred took immediate steps to address the fallout. Management issued an apology to Angela and announced a new set of policies aimed at preventing similar conflicts in the future. Among the changes were clear signage, notices reminding customers to respect the queue and each other. Staff training, employees received conflict resolution training to handle disputes with professionalism and empathy. Community engagement, the pharmacy partnered with local organizations to promote awareness of respectful behavior in public spaces. Angela's story also inspired other businesses in the area to review their practices. Several local stores announced similar measures, citing her experience as a catalyst for improvement. In addition to these changes, Angela began working with a community advocacy group to promote dialogue and education around public respect and accountability. Together, they launched workshops and campaigns encouraging people to step in and support victims of public harassment or aggression. Weeks later, Margaret re-emerged with a prepared apology. She released a video statement, her tone subdued and her expression somber. "I want to sincerely apologize to Angela and everyone who was affected by my actions," she began. "I let my frustration and impatience get the better of me, and I behaved in a way that was completely unacceptable." The apology, while received with mixed reactions, was acknowledged by Angela. In a follow-up interview, she addressed Margaret's statement with grace. "I appreciate the apology," Angela said. "It doesn't erase what happened, but we all make mistakes. What matters is how we choose to move forward. I hope this experience will lead to growth, not just for Margaret, but for all of us." Her response further solidified her image as someone focused on progress rather than punishment. In the months following the incident, Angela's story continued to inspire change. Schools, workplaces, and community centers began adopting policies that emphasized respect and accountability in public and professional spaces. Angela herself became an advocate, speaking at events and sharing her message of resilience. One of her most powerful moments came during a community panel discussion, where she addressed a crowd of hundreds. "It's easy to let anger and frustration take over," she said, "but every interaction we have is an opportunity to choose kindness, patience, and respect. That's the legacy I want this story to leave behind." The audience gave her a standing ovation, moved by her wisdom and strength. As Angela returned to her everyday life, she reflected on how much had changed since that afternoon in the pharmacy. What had started as a moment of humiliation and shock had turned into a powerful movement for accountability and respect. One evening, as she sipped tea with friends, Angela shared her thoughts. "I never imagined something like this would happen to me," she admitted. "But I'm glad it did. It reminded me of how much power we have when we stand up for what's right, even in the smallest moments." Her friends nodded in agreement, inspired by her strength. The incident, though painful, had sparked something far greater than anyone could have anticipated, a ripple of change that touched countless lives. Angela's quiet resilience and unwavering dignity had transformed a moment of disrespect into a powerful call for unity, kindness, and understanding. And that, Angela thought, was a victory worth celebrating. In the aftermath of the public backlash, Margaret became a recluse. The once confident professional, whose sharp attire and commanding presence used to define her, now lived behind closed blinds in her suburban home. The world outside was no longer a place of opportunity, but one of scrutiny and judgment. Margaret's decision to apologize, though seemingly calculated, brought her no relief. The apology video she released was met with skepticism, as viewers dissected every word, tone, and expression. For many, it seemed like damage control rather than a genuine attempt at reconciliation. Her former colleagues distanced themselves, not wanting to be associated with her name. Even friends who had supported her during tough times struggled to defend her actions. "I never thought she was capable of something like this," one former acquaintance remarked in an online forum. Margaret was left isolated, with few allies and even fewer opportunities to rebuild her life. For Angela, life moved forward, but not without its challenges. Though she had become a symbol of dignity and resilience, she privately struggled with the emotional scars left by the incident. The moment of being spat on replayed in her mind at unexpected times, bringing waves of anger and sadness. Determined not to let the incident define her, Angela sought therapy. Her counselor encouraged her to confront her feelings rather than suppress them. "What you experienced wasn't just disrespect, it was a dehumanizing act," the therapist explained. "Your strength lies in how you've responded, not with hatred, but with grace." Angela took these words to heart, channeling her energy into projects that aligned with her values. She joined a local advocacy group that focused on promoting respect and fairness in public spaces. Through workshops, she shared her story, emphasizing the importance of empathy and patience in everyday interactions. One evening, after speaking at a community event, a young woman approached Angela with tears in her eyes. "Your story gave me the courage to stand up for myself," she said. "I've always been too afraid to speak out, but now I feel like I can." Angela smiled warmly, realizing that her pain had become a source of strength and inspiration for others. The incident in the pharmacy became a case study for organizations and institutions seeking to address issues of public respect and conflict resolution. Angela's story was shared in schools and workplaces across the country, sparking discussions about how to navigate tense situations without resorting to aggression or entitlement. The pharmacy itself became a model for change. Management introduced a training program for employees, teaching them how to de-escalate conflicts and support customers experiencing harassment. They also partnered with local community leaders to host monthly seminars on civility and respect in shared spaces. The impact extended beyond the pharmacy. Other businesses in the area began implementing similar measures, inspired by Angela's story. Posters reminding customers to be patient and kind appeared in storefronts, and some organizations even created civility ambassadors' roles, employees trained to mediate disputes and foster a welcoming environment. Months after the incident, Margaret attempted to rebuild her life. She moved to a neighboring town, hoping for a fresh start. She enrolled in a conflict resolution workshop, not out of a desire for personal growth, but because it was a requirement for the court-mandated program following Angela's assault complaint. The workshops forced Margaret to confront her actions. During one session, the facilitator asked participants to reflect on a time they'd hurt someone else. Margaret hesitated, but eventually spoke. "I lost my temper," she admitted. "I let my frustration get the better of me, and I acted in a way I never thought I would." Her words were met with silence, but the facilitator pressed her further. "What did you learn from that experience?" he asked. Margaret struggled to find an answer. The incident had cost her almost everything: her job, her reputation, and her sense of self. Yet in that moment, she realized the depth of the harm she had caused, not just to Angela, but to herself as well. For the first time, Margaret began to grasp the weight of her actions. As the months passed, Angela found herself reflecting less on the incident and more on the journey it had sparked. She had turned a moment of humiliation into an opportunity for growth, not just for herself, but for her community. One day, she received an unexpected letter in the mail. It was from Margaret. The letter was short and handwritten, the shaky script revealing Margaret's struggle to put her thoughts into words. "Dear Angela, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know how deeply sorry I am for what I did. I've spent months thinking about my actions and the pain I caused you. I was wrong, and I will regret it for the rest of my life. I hope someday you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Sincerely, Margaret." Angela sat with the letter for a long time. She didn't feel anger or satisfaction, only a quiet sense of closure. Margaret's words, though late, marked the end of a chapter. Angela decided not to respond directly, believing that forgiveness was not something Margaret needed to hear, but something Angela needed to feel for herself. She folded the letter and placed it in a drawer, letting the act of forgiveness rest in her heart. Angela's life continued to blossom in ways she hadn't anticipated. Her advocacy work gained national recognition, and she was invited to speak at conferences and panels about the importance of respect and empathy in public life. One of her proudest moments came when she was awarded the Community Impact Award by a local nonprofit. In her acceptance speech, she shared a simple but powerful message. "Everyday moments define us more than the big ones. It's how we treat the cashier at the grocery store, the stranger in line, the people we think we'll never see again. Respect costs nothing but means everything." Her words were met with a standing ovation, and Angela felt a profound sense of peace. She had taken the darkest moment of her life and transformed it into a beacon of light for others. Margaret, now living a quieter life, watched Angela's speech online. She felt a pang of regret, but also a sense of gratitude. Angela's words had reached her in ways Margaret never expected. Though she would never fully undo the harm she caused, Margaret vowed to live with more humility and care moving forward. The pharmacy incident had left its mark on both women, but while Angela's story became a source of hope and progress, Margaret served as a cautionary tale, a reminder of how a single moment of impatience and entitlement could ripple far beyond its origin. In the end, the incident was about more than two women. It was about the countless others who saw themselves in Angela's story and found strength in her courage. It was about the businesses, schools, and communities that took her message to heart and made changes for the better. It was about the power of resilience, accountability, and the belief that even in our worst moments, we can choose to grow. And for Angela, it was about proving that dignity and kindness will always be stronger than hate,